Hey everyone, it's Lulasai. Welcome to my first ever video game review. This is, we're starting off with an interesting one. We are starting off with Marathon 2026, because I call it 2026 because there was an original Marathon way back then, which I believe you can play on the Xbox Game Pass program, or you could probably just buy it digitally. But I haven't played that yet, so this is technically my first Marathon game. And yeah, it is a reboot. It's a pretty weird reboot because it's an extraction shooter. They are trend chasing clearly, and I guess they just picked a random IP out of their bucket. Alright, so this is developed by Bungie, if I didn't say. I may have already said it. I'm very forgetful these days for some reason. And the plot, well, at least my understanding of it, we're going to treat this like a movie review, which is fun for me because it allows me to review video games slightly differently than the average reviewer. Because when you think of a game like Marathon or Arc Raiders, you're not thinking of the story, right? But I am thinking of the story and I want to tell it to you, so that's what we're going to try to do, hopefully. They do an okay job of introducing you to what's going on, but you may be a little bit confused if you are skipping any cutscenes and dialogue. So, plot is that once upon a time, I think they're in the year, I forget what year they're in. I think they're in the year like 2280 or something. I'm probably completely wrong with that. I don't know. They're in the future, and once upon a time, there was a human colony ship called the UESC Marathon that was trying to colonize the planet of Tau Ceti, which, interestingly, if you watch the movie with Ryan Gosling called Project Hail Mary, Tau Ceti is actually featured in there. It's completely unrelated to Marathon, but just a little fun fact for you. Yeah, so humans are trying to colonize this, but then mysteriously one day they all go missing because of some alien slash rogue AI attacks. So our job, our position in the game is that we are playing as basically an unnamed mercenary, or I guess whatever your PlayStation tag is. Or is this game on Xbox? It probably is, right? Even though it's a Sony game. I don't know. I don't care. Xbox is kind of dead, low-key, sorry. It is on Steam, though, and it's on PlayStation 5. So, we are playing as, an unnamed mercenary who is... Here's the thing. Tau Ceti is not, currently very viable to go to and survive on. So, the solution is that humanity uploads their... minds into these synthetic, runners called shells, and there are a bunch of big factions that are currently, think if this was real life, think about you have your Apple, your Microsoft, and stuff like that, and these big corporations are hiring us, the player, to go and scavenge these planets and do various tasks depending on what the faction, their objective is. So yeah, you've got Cyber ACME, which is the basic sort of just looting faction. You've got Arachne, which is the combat one. So there's there's actually more of a story than you'd think. Does it matter though? Not really, but hey, I guess it's there. So yeah, I actually think the premise is kind of cool, but I just don't like the direction the game went. So for me, this game is a very mixed bag. I will say right now, I'm going to try to remember this to say this with games. I won't always be able to. If I review a game on Nintendo DS, I'm probably not going to be able to tell you my playtime. But in this case, I can tell you my playtime. So I played Marathon for 84 hours, and I did 100% the game with the Platinum Trophy. It's my... Let's see, actually. How many Platinums do I have? Okay, it's my 134th Platinum. And now we have this sound going on. I don't want any copyright or anything like that. So, yeah. I don't know if that would actually count as copyright, but whatever. I just like to have this as a little thing for you to look at. This is a very homemade style kind of videos, and that's the way I like to do it, even though it is, low production value, I admit. Alright, so let's get into the review though. So, Marathon. Positives. It is a beautiful game to look at visually. I'm playing on the PS5 Pro. I have the Pulse Elite headphones over there off screen, I think. I'm not sure if you see it. So it's a very immersive game for me because I have the 4K HDR TV, the PS5 Pro, and the Pulse Elite 3D audio headphones. So extremely cool, visually impressive, immersive game, and the sound design is awesome. There's so many different types of sounds that are just going to be like playing with your mind. Like if you play on the Dire Marsh Night map, for example, there's literally like these these alien creatures that just pop up out of nowhere, and the sounds they make are terrifying. And sometimes they don't even pop up. Sometimes the game just fakes you out to keep you on edge, and stuff like that just makes the game more memorable and have a more of an impact with me instead of just being a generic shooter, which this is not. This is not a generic shooter. This is a very high quality shooter with great gameplay. Unfortunately, the game does reward hyper stealth playstyles, which I say unfortunately because I'm not going to pretend like it's fun, because this is how you succeed. If you're playing solo, you are going to want to be the assassin, and you're going to want to crouch walk in any of the named settlements on the map. And that can get boring, right? It gets boring just like crouching and slowly walking. See if you can hear anybody. Just whoever hears each other first is going to be the winner of that engagement. Whoever gets the first shot or sees the other person first is almost always the winner of that engagement. So unfortunately, the game rewards this hyper stealth style, and I would say that's a little bit of a flaw, but I don't know how you fix that, because that's just the meta of the game, right? I guess there are some pro sweats that could hop on Vandal and just like run loops around you, but you know, most of us aren't going to be like that. So most of the time you're going to want to be stealthy and make as little noise as possible. It is hilarious how far you can hear the gunfire. That's another problem, actually. We're supposed to be talking about positives. That's another problem before I forget, though. You can hear enemy gunfire way too far away, and the reason it's like, you know, a problem is because the map is honest. Like, think of Perimeter. Perimeter's not that large, all things considered, and if you want to find an enemy player, just switch your starting location, basically. Wherever you spawn in, if you spawn into the closest, like wherever you spawn in, you're going to have one, maybe two close settlements to you, right? So you can safely assume that in solo, you're probably not going to find someone too fast at those close ones to you. So all you have to do is just go to any other settlement that is not close to you, and you will find someone, inevitably. This is not like Arc Raiders where, you know, you can just hide out. There's nothing to do in the outskirts of the map, right? Like in Arc Raiders, you might be wanting to like loot some cacti for like prickly pears and stuff like that, but there's nothing in the outskirts here. You're always going to be at a named settlement. So why are you also on top of that? If the game is like so forcing these close encounters so frequently, then why is the gunfire so easy to hear as well? It encourages third partying, which is a huge problem in this game as well. And so even though the game is super high quality, it looks amazing, plays pretty well, love the feel of it, love the guns actually. I don't have a problem with the designs at all. I think the guns actually look really distinct and cool looking. Yes, they look like Minecraft or Roblox, but hey, at least it's not like generic Call of Duty cloned guns, right? I wouldn't want like Fortnite or Call of Duty guns in this. I'm glad that they look distinct. So yeah. But we're supposed to be talking positive. So I've glazed the game's visuals and high production value. This game was clearly very expensive to make. Every single animation is thought out, and there's a lot of attention to detail with everything. I mean, it's a really fleshed out game as far as detail goes and just the way everything looks and feels. And that's really the biggest positive, is just, yeah, the guns, they're fun. Although I guess some of them are a little bit useless. Like, I wouldn't want to use the, like, I would rather use the Magnum over every other pistol, so why do the other pistols need to exist, right? That's just questions like that, but that's pretty common in most games. And I'm trying to think of some primary weapon examples now. Snipers are extremely annoying in this, but what are you going to do? That's just how snipers are. It's crazy, because sometimes I'll get one shot or two shot from someone at Dire Marsh Night, completely like far away from them, and I don't know how they're landing these shots. I think there's some scopes that are like letting them, or I know there's scopes that are letting them see in the dark more easily, so that's probably how, but it's just a little, that's just the nature of extraction shooters, that lets you bring your own kits as well, though, so. But positives, that's basically it, is just the, you know, the superficial stuff, but not in a, you know, kind of backhanded compliment kind of way. I genuinely think the game looks good, plays good, feels good, sounds amazing, and the story, hey, it's better than nothing, right? Okay, now for the negatives, though. So, the negatives, there are some shells that are better than others, just like I was talking with the guns and stuff. So why would you ever play Thief Why would you ever play, I guess some people play Destroyer, but I don't really like Destroyer. I guess Destroyer's okay though. Thief is the perfect example. There's no reason to play Thief right now. Thief is like a meme, and I mean, you are so vulnerable when you go into your drone mode that it's just like, what are you doing if you're playing Thief? It's fun for the memes, but that's it. It reminds me of, I forget her name. It was my main actually when I played Apex Legends. The girl with the ring teleport that can see rarities through walls. It reminds me of that, but just way worse. Way, way, way worse. So yeah, Thief is just useless. Rook is kind of a weird concept. I think the reason Rook exists is to sort of compete with Arc Raiders a little more closely. Because, like, there's only two casual elements about this game. There's the Rook, which is kind of a meme class where you can talk to others and try to get them to spare your life, I guess. High risk, high reward. And then you've also got the Vault Breaker PvE mode, which for some reason right now is only temporary, which makes no sense because unless you're like me and you want to grind 100 season levels as fast as possible, which is exactly what I wanted to do towards the end. I played the game for real for like the first season entirely, and then the first like 80 levels of season 2, and then those last 20 levels in season 2 I just went to Vault Breaker mode for just to get it over with at that point, because I had really experienced everything the game had to offer at that point, except one thing. So we're in the negatives now, so let's talk about the game's philosophy, or rather like why it's not going to be a success. So the one thing I haven't done in this game is the compiler. I have basically done everything else. I have opened most of the vaults on Cryo. I have fought most of the bosses on each of the maps. Like, I've really done everything there's to do except compiler, because compiler is just such an anomaly in this game. It really makes no sense. So they finally add an alien to the game, which is what people had been wanting in past tense, because, you know, there are some aliens now with the whole vertebrae things that are on Dire Martianite and all that, and those, you know, jump scare creatures. So there are some aliens now, but that was one of the top complaints people had, was that, you know, it's a Marathon game that only has robots, and apparently the original Marathon trilogy had some aliens to fight. So they finally add an alien, and it's the compiler boss, which the Cryo Archive, I like the Cryo Archive map. It's probably the best map on the game. Extremely cool, a huge amount of detail to it. But this is so anti-player, this map, it's crazy. So, I mean, how are you supposed to compete or trend chase with Arc Raiders if you have, like, your whole end game is inaccessible to 90% or more of the player base? I mean, some of the most sweaty, elite, absolute meta-equipping loadout people with coordinated squads are unable to do the compiler. So it's just so bizarre that so early in this game's lifespan they would release that. It's not like we're on Destiny 2 Expansion 4 endgame raids on the hardest difficulty right now. This is Marathon Reboot. You should be trying to get new players back into the game. But instead you have this hyper sweaty, impossible PvE content, because technically the compiler is PvE content, but it might as well be PvP content. It's a little more accessible now with Vault Breaker mode, but some people wouldn't even count that the true compiler experience. So if you're trying to get the true compiler experience, which is PvP Cryo, good luck. You're going to have to bring a loadout of minimum value of like 5,000, which is quite high, and you will be farming for hours just to regain all the supplies you lost. And then you have about like 30 minutes, I believe. It's either 30, 35, or 40 minutes. I forget right now. But in PvP Cryo, you probably have 30 minutes to try and solve every single vault on the map and then wipe out every other player's team, or have them exfil so that they can leave you alone, because, you know, you're not going to coordinate with everyone unless you're a Twitch streamer that purposely, like, everyone queues at the same time to get in with a Twitch streamer so that they can work together, which has happened before. But yeah, it's just so sweaty. And that's the problem with the game really in general. I'm actually pretty good at the game, but and I'm not always good at every game I play, but it seems like first-person shooters I'm pretty good at. But anyways, I'm not trying to glaze myself. I'm just saying, even as someone who does not have a skill issue with this game, I do think it's way too sweaty. I'm able to cheese my way to success using Assassin, using smoke grenades and stuff like that. But if you're, like, let's say you just want to casually play the game and, I don't know, be the recon class, right? You're going to have this AI drone that's like barely working correctly half the time. You have this scan that's going to show you robot locations. So you decide, oh, you want to destroy a robot. Well, now you've made a bunch of sound, and you're going to have 2 or 3 other squads coming to your location because you're making all the sound fighting the robots. The robots themselves are also very difficult. Eventually you'll learn how to deal with them, but they're also very challenging opponents. So it's like this game, who is it for? And the answer is, it is for a very, very small percentage of people. This is not a game that is welcoming to the average person. It is way too intense, way too sweaty, and will require way too many hundreds of hours in order to get the most out of it. So yeah, that's the main negative for me, really, is just the fact that the game is, I don't think it should have been what it is. I do not think it should be an extraction shooter. Or if it is an extraction shooter, it should be way more like Arc Raiders. I mean, if you're going to trend chase, just trend chase properly, right? If you're going to put your own spin on it, do it better, because this is not it. This is way too hardcore, and it's going to turn off people from playing the game very fast, because they're going to play a few rounds and never want to come back. That's just how miserable they're going to be. So yeah. This is a game that can only be appreciated by the elite few, basically, which is a very weird design choice for a game that's supposed to be a live service that actually wants to make a profit, right? Because they're not going to have any players left after. Because you need to get the casuals, or else you're not going to have anyone, or you're not going to have enough. Alright, the other... so yeah, this to me should have been like a story... this should have been like a campaign game with a multiplayer to the side or something. Imagine if this was a real game, like think of like Halo Combat Evolved with a real campaign and everything. And then you have some multiplayer features on the side. Or Halo 2, I guess, is a better example. Imagine if this was more like Halo 2, then this would be a way more successful game, but it's not Halo 2. It is just a pointless live service game that's going to go away in no time at all. Yeah, I hate to say it, but it's just the truth. I do think this game was a massive waste of money and resources. I think they could have done way better, and probably should have... They need to learn their lesson at this point, because it's just getting a little ridiculous now, what Sony is doing, or the direction they're taking. Okay, other negatives. So Season 2 did improve on this, but Season 1 was kind of hilariously bad when it came to quality of life features. Like Season 2 now has self-revives and solo, which is awesome. Yeah, you have the Cradle now, which should have been there in the first place probably. Actually, Cradle's pretty awesome, I'll shout out that. But also the Cradle introduces a new problem. Why would I ever want to use my yellow gear when I can just convert it into Cradle matter? I remember I got this yellow backpack or something that gave me 3 Cradle levels. That is way more worth it than using a backpack for 1 or 2 matches that I'm going to lose eventually to getting third-partied by someone, right? You can't just decide to keep your stuff if you want to. It's not up to you. This is a game with a lot of various elements in it going on. PvE and PvP mixing over constantly, trying to do a boss fight, and players hear you doing that fight, so they join. You don't know if they're going to help you do the boss or if they're going to just take you down. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know, the Cradle's good, but it also changed the way I looked at my loot. I no longer was using my loot, I was just converting it to matter, because it's way more useful to have all these perks on that. So everything's a give and take with this game. It's just way too mixed for me to honestly recommend to anyone. And yeah, I think the gameplay loop is suffering right now. I think the mandatory wipes are very lame, and are just further pushing that hardcore sweaty mindset of this game has to be your like second job, or else you're not going to be able to experience it properly or to its fullest potential. So hate stuff like that. I mean, if they're going to try and trend chase Arc Raiders, you need to be a little bit more close to what they're doing, and it would have been better. I hate to encourage copying, but would you rather have a game? I mean, I'm trying to think of a game right now that's copying. There's a lot of examples, but I would rather have like a Killzone than a Concord or something, right? You need to, some games need to copy others better. That's a bad example, but Resistance, I mean, these all are copying some form of FPS shooter that came before it, but I'd rather have those, and they do manage to put their own spins on it, and they have their own unique mechanics. Like Resistance has like alt fires on their weapons. But yeah, I'm just like really going off on a tangent now. So let's go ahead and wrap this review up. Marathon 2026 is not a bad game. It's just a huge waste of money, resources, and your money as well. Not just the studio's money, but your money as well. It is not something that I can recommend in good heart. So this puts me in an awkward position. I'll tell you one thing quickly here at the end. When I review movies, I always give it an out of 10 score, and then I say whether I like it or not. And the like thing is just off of Letterboxd. Like, there's literally a like button on Letterboxd, and I ask myself if I want to press it or not. Because sometimes I'll give a movie a 5 out of 10, but not press the like button because I didn't like it. But it may not be the worst thing ever. Here, with games, usually I go off the Steam review process, which is you write a review, I do an out of 10, and then I do a do you recommend or do you not recommend. So if this was Letterboxd, I would say yes, I like the game. If this was Steam, I would say no, I do not recommend the game. Because I can like something but not recommend it, and that's the awkward position I'm in here. So I'm going to give Marathon 2026 a 5 out of 10. And I'm going to not recommend it. I do not think this is worth your money. I do not think it has a longevity factor to it. And even if it did have a longevity factor to it, there's mandatory wipes that are going to force you to have this game be as your second day job every few months after the wipe happens. So yeah, I just think that the game from conception, the way it was designed, just was not correct. And I think it's going to die out one day. They'll probably keep the servers online for a while just to save face. But I think as far as like a real game with a real community, I don't think this one has much of a shot, if I'm being honest. And I hate to say that. I'm not just hating for the sake of hating. I'm trying to give my honest opinion right now. So 5 out of 10 for Marathon. I don't hate it, but I also don't recommend it. I think it's a waste of your money. Thank you for watching this review. And it is now time for me to uninstall this game and move on, which I don't always move on. I do not always move on from games just because I've 100% of them. But this is a game that does not have the elements needed to retain me permanently. It's just not going to happen.